we've had this figured out 3 times and started over again 3 times. We're just, really trying to decide on what we want to leave, what we want to replace, how deep we want to go. There's some things we have to do just for safety type to make sure it's about, we have to provide value and safety to anybody who's going to live in this house, whether it be us or a tenant. One of the biggest issues that we've run into is the electrical. I'll walk you through a little bit. You can see some of it right here. We have open splices everywhere throughout this whole house. There's really no way to trust any of this electrical. The only way to go is to be a complete rewire. Which brings us into the fact that, this house wasn't made with electricity in mind. On the walls, everywhere through the house, we've got this wood paneling, which I'm guessing is from the 70s or 80s. As you guys know, the house is, I think, built in 1900 or 1910, so it's over 100 years old, so it's much older than this paneling. Behind the paneling is the original lath and plaster, and behind that, I don't know. Most people I've talked to regarding brick homes in this area from this era say that you could pretty well expect that there's going to be 2x4 framing behind the lath and plaster. But I have talked to some folks that said they got into it and there wasn't any 2x4 framing. Rather, what they found was 1 inch by 10 inch or 1 inch by 12 inch pine boards that are kind of, there'll be one layer that's this way and another layer that's this way, and there's no frame to speak of. So at one point we kind of decided we're going to demo all of the walls, pull off the paneling, pull off the plaster, insulate, run the wires through the walls, and then drywall. That kind of brings up a concern for me is just how deep are we going to get into it? We just don't know everything that we don't know that we would get into. We can't really afford to get into a project that's just going to last indefinitely. And another concern we have is if we take this paneling off, is it glued on to that plaster? Are we going to be just pulling the plaster apart if we take this paneling off? And to make things a little more difficult, somebody took the time to remove the trim when they put the paneling up. The trim overlaps the paneling. One thing I'd like to do is to save this trim, which pretty much everybody agrees is irreplaceable and has a lot of character. But I have, removed a lot of trim, and even with, lots of different pry bars and lots of patience, it seems like you always break some. And I don't have any way to recreate this. You definitely can't go buy it anywhere. So I'd be very happy to not disturb the trim. One thing we've considered, which I think we may do, let us know what your thoughts are, is, well, before I get into that, when you look up, after taking the suspended ceiling down, the paneling, of course, doesn't go all the way up. So we can't just simply paint the paneling because we have that, 10 inches or so where it didn't extend to the ceiling. So I thought about a way to maybe put a seam and add more paneling, but I'm not in love with the paneling to start with. That might be an idea, to just paint this and add more paneling. We've also thought about just drywalling over the paneling which might sound like a hack move, let me know. I think this trim is about a full 5/4 thick, so I think we could butt up 1/2 inch drywall to the trim and just leave the trim, and try to get a tight mud along the trim. And then we could end up with some nice looking drywalled walls. So that's one idea we've had. So regarding the electrical, we do know that we need to replace all of the electrical. The electrician I've had in here says it would be extremely hard to run it through the walls. One, we don't know if there's any cavity space, if there's any 2x4s in there, and two, you know, we've got this paneling that doesn't really allow us to just trench and make holes like they would need. So our electrician has suggested one idea we could do is just do surface mount electrical. Everything would be run, I don't know what the electricians call it, but all the wiring would be run through the plastic track. And then the outlets would be, they would stick out, you know, 1.5 inches or so. It would be up to code and it would be safe. It wouldn't look quite as nice. So that's kind of the thoughts that we're trying to struggle through and figure out on that. We have finally found a good price for windows. I'll come over here and show you. The historic district would like us to use fiberglass windows. They do not like vinyl, even if it's colored, but they'll allow fiberglass windows. We finally found a local shop that can do fiberglass windows that they can get the factory to manufacture them to this width, and they can get them in with leaving the trim as is. They just have to take out just this one piece of trim on the inside and outside. So we're pretty happy to have that figured out. The bid came in pretty affordably, this piece right here. And that's, you know, we do like the original windows, but none of them move. There's a lot of rot, and there's just no way that, you know, we can make this safe and usable. You know, we got to be thinking about egress and stuff for anybody who's in here. So we do have that figured out. We don't have the walls figured out yet. We can shoot down here, look at the floor. The floor, I think we can pretty easily salvage. Just rent some sanders and salvage this original floor. It's mostly intact. And on the ceiling, the current thought is to just clean up the mess here and fur it out with 2x2s or 2x4s, and then put a layer of drywall up. That way we can have a nice flat surface if we fur it out.